Members of civil society in Nigeria are seeking the domestication of the National Disability Act 2018. The bill for the act, which was signed into law in January 2019, prohibits the discrimination of persons on the grounds of disability and imposes sanctions, including fines and even prison sentences. At a forum held in Benin, the Edo State capital, participants asked the federal government to better protect the rights of persons living with disabilities.
I understand that it's on its way.
The United Nations flagship report on disability and the Sustainable Development Goals, the Disability and Development Report on the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals by, for and with persons with disabilities, was launched in 2018. The report highlights that persons with disabilities, 15% of the world population, are at a disadvantage regarding most Sustainable Development Goals. In Nigeria, the bill for the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act 2018 was signed into law in January 2019.
And so we thank you for coming.
Almost 1 year after, key stakeholders meet here in this forum to highlight the importance of this step.
There must be very deliberate strategic plans to ensure that these very first citizens that are challenged have the complete right of way in every form and sphere of life.
The role of different members of society in seeing to the fruitfulness of the act is also in focus.
People make the laws, the legislature, those who implement the law, the executive, those who interpret for compliance, the judiciary, and those for whom and in whose name the laws are made do not take immediate and conscious efforts, then the society will always miss the opportunity to actualize the benefits of any law that is made.
Discussants at the event have their say as well.
And look at the barriers we're talking about. There are institutional barriers, there could be environmental barriers, there are social barriers, cultural barriers. All those barriers is what we have to collectively pull down so that their future can be accessible.
Two things that have been mentioned, the commission and then the trust fund. So these are things we can execute into the law to make it a lot more accommodative and then easy to enforce.
The organizer of the event makes a further appeal.
The National Commission that will implement most aspects of those laws, guarantee the education and health care of people with disabilities should be established. I want to call on Mr. President to take steps, having signed the law into the bill into law, he should also take steps to start the implementation of the law.
The Network for the Advancement of People with Visible Disabilities, NAPFID, has promised to continue its advocacy efforts to see the realization of the goals the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act 2018 promises to deliver when fully implemented. Jessica Olugusere, Channels Television News.
So let's get more on ensuring human rights protection for persons living with disabilities. And we're joined on the program by David Ayale, a human rights and disability rights consultant to the Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Program. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much.
So annually, there's a global focus on human rights protection. At this time of the year, how much progress is Nigeria making in this area, considering the importance of human dignity to sustainable development?
Yeah, Nigeria is making progress, especially issues that has to affect vulnerable population, recognizing early this year that His Excellency President Muhammad Buhari signed into an act, Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act. What that means is that issues of human rights abuses around people with disabilities is today prohibited. Beyond prohibition of discrimination and other harmful practices, the Act provides for access to public infrastructure, access to education, access to health care, access to political participation. In fact, the Act provides for a commission for persons with disabilities in Nigeria. With this, we can say that a progress has been made. It's a good development here in Nigeria. Recognizing this year is the first time we are celebrating both Human Rights Day as well as International Day for Persons with Disabilities with an act that protects citizens with disabilities.
And so the disability rights law makes provision for improved access to basic services for persons with disabilities. What are the ways in which members of the society can be more informed about the need to ensure inclusion and, of course, equal opportunities for them?
Yeah, it would be very good, just as we are doing now here in Channels Television, by putting it as front burner, by ensuring that all issues that are, being discussed has a disability component. If we are discussing politics, the question is, what is its implication to person with disabilities using the Disability Act as a tool? If we are discussing health issues, what is its implication to person with disabilities, be it education, be it environment, be it social infrastructures? Disability issue is a cross-cutting. By the media mainstreaming or including disability issues in their narratives, I believe it will go a long way to ensure that, all Nigerians understand this issue and be able to understand their role and responsibility. And that is why we appreciate organizations like ROLAC, the Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Program of the British Council, with support from EU, which is helping to engage critical stakeholders for them to understand their role and responsibilities in operationalizing this act. Awareness is very important for us. The act provides that the Federal Minister of Information will provide leadership in creating awareness around the rights of persons with disabilities and their potentials, including their contribution to national development.
So as with many social issues, civil society has done a lot of work with advocacy for persons with disabilities. Would you say there's sufficient support from the government to back up such efforts?
There is no sufficient support from the government. That is why we are really worried. This is 11 months after the bill was signed into an act. 11 months. The establishment of this commission have not taken place. And that is why we are asking President Muhammad Buhari to take appropriate measure to establish this commission so that the commission will play its role and responsibility in supporting both the government and non-governmental institutions in their role and responsibility to protect the rights of persons with disability. Because that is where government responsibility is, expected to play a key role. By establishing this commission, people who will be expected to be members of this commission include people from organizations of persons with disabilities, individuals that will be seconded by line ministries, departments, and agencies, with each office at the office of the presidency. So we expect that the secretary to the government of the federation will present this memo to the president, requesting for this establishment of this act. By so doing, government would have done, start its own role in ensuring that this act is implemented.
All right, thank you very much for that, Mr. David Anyale, Human and Disability Rights Consultant to the Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Program, ROLAC. Thank you for joining us today on Africa 54.